Okay, for the more astute among you, you'll notice that I've changed the image I've used because it's been excessively difficult to find the specifications for a standard SWAT vehicle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with my cube and I'm going to modify it to match the dimensions of the Ford E450 ambulance vehicle because, you know, it's a thing. So all I've done is I've selected the cube and I'll slide this thing out and go back to item, and it gives the dimensions in here. So because it's a bit hard to see, I'm going to minimize this window a little bit so I can just focus in on the overall length and height of my vehicle. I only need 2 dimensions and I'll talk about that in a moment. I don't know the width, but we'll work it out. Anyhow, so here I've got the dimensions. The green line is for the Y, so I'm going to do 268 inches, and Blender knows what an inch is. It's very nice. Converts it also to meters for me because, you know, I don't want to do conversion. And that. Oh, whoops, no, that's the wrong one. So I'll just put that back to 2 meters. The height is 107.5 inches. Alright, so that gives me the dimensions. I'm actually going to then go into wireframe mode and I'll show you how I do this. So Z4 will give me wireframe. Screencast keys should be active, so let's just give it another toggle. Yes, it's now active. Wireframe mode, you can see it down here. Alright, so first up, I also have no top view. That's not going to be a huge concern. So looking from the front, I don't know how wide this is, but I know the height and the length. I only need 1 dimension in this case, so grabbing it, dropping it around center, and this is really an eyeball estimation. And now I need to rescale this thing so it matches. So all I'm just going to do is scale, bring it in so that the wheels touch the bottom and the top touches the top. So what I've done is I've guesstimated that distance and that distance, match the 2, and if I grab in the Z direction, just slide it down a bit. I can see a little bit off, but you know, I can adjust each time to get closer and closer. Too far. Yeah, it should be enough, bad enough. Alright. And what you'll notice is that my cube is not wide enough, but this image is about the right size now. So if I scale in the X direction to make my cube wider only, that should about do it. And you'll notice here there's a little knobble there and a little knobble there. And all I need to do is grab X direction, just slide it over a little bit so that my bounding cube matches my image. And I'm going to grab this one. Now this is the actual source image I've taken from theblueprints.com. Now what I've ended up doing is I've ended up going to a couple of different places to work out what I'm doing, where I'm getting the information from. So again, my estimation on scaling should be about there. Grab, drop into that, and you'll notice, oh yeah, I misjudged the thing. Scale again, the wheels are fine. So this looks like this image is wider than the other image. Question is, which image do I go for? I'll probably go for the second image, but anyhow. Flicking round to the back view, so this should be the back. Grab it, drop it in place. Now actually I'll switch back to the front view for a second. This image, and this is just a quick little thing to speed things up for me. All these 4 views of this object are of the same size, so it's scaled to about 5 meters. Copy that 5, select my alternate image, paste that in. It should work. Oh wait, I've got to apply scale. Yeah, okay. So if you look back here, the scale is all out. It's not 1. So I'm going to apply the scale. Nope. Okay. Shift A, apply scale. What that should do is apply the scale to this to make that over there. It hasn't. Wonderful. Then another solution. Take the scale of this object and apply it to the other object. That way, when I flick around to the rear view, I can just grab my little thing and position it. making the tyres touch the bottom. So it looks like the vehicle I've got one image for, the wireframe cutout thing, and this one are a little bit out, but that's okay. So again, select the image, paste, paste, paste. Now this is the right side view, so grabbing this and dropping it here. And oh, the length is nigh on perfect. So is the height. So this tells me that this image is correctly scaled, that is. Flicking to the far side, again selecting the image and applying the 3 scaling transformations. If I grab it, reposition it, oh, okay. This one is a little long. That sucks. They should all be to the same scale. So whoever's done their job hasn't done it right. That's okay. We'll work around it. So if I go one side, that looks right. Front of the vehicle touches, back of the vehicle touches, and it's an approximation. It doesn't have to be perfect. This one, a little bit long. So the scaling height-wise is fine, but the length is a little bit out because there's various points on here that we're going to have to address and hit on in terms of marking lines in this bounding box cube that we're developing. So, and all my reference images are in weird places. Okay, well, I'll fix that in a sec. So, switching to the front view, I've got these 2 images here. Now that one, this one with a big window, we'll just hide. And this one, that looks correct, but our bounding box cube is incorrect. Scale X. Alright, so that should be about the right size. Switching to the back view to double check, and it's almost right. I'd love to be able to make this a little bit bigger, but then, well, I suppose the scaling's out because there's a little bit of gap down that side, and across the top. So scale, just hold down Shift for very precision scaling, and then grab to get it sitting in the right spot. That looks about right. So if we flick through the views quickly, we've got a front, a back, one side, other side. Now this other side looks a little bit out. I'd be really tempted to just grab this and scale in the Y direction just to pull it in a little bit, and then to grab Y and just slide it forward so it all fits. So the back and side touch, and hopefully when I put a division line down this centerpiece here to separate out the cab from the back half, it will work. So this is meant to be a basic introduction to vehicle modeling. So we've got an image set up now. Now I'm going to select all of these little images and slide them into my reference collection to get them out of the way. So if I want to, I can hide them. That one I'm going to keep hidden. I might go back to it later and see if it's useful. But you can see here as I rotate around the vehicle, I've got different views. Now, if you've got some Photoshop skills, it might be worth just hacking out individual vehicles so you don't have the other 3 views floating around. But really, that's not relevant. So I need to lock all these images away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my filter, and there's this selectable icon. If I select on that, it gives me all these selectable. I'm just going to make that whole reference collection unselectable and stash it away. Don't need the selectability thing anymore. That's done. Alright, so now I can't select these images. They're locked into place. I can go back and tweak the opacity, the alpha channel, but now I'm pretty much set up for modeling. What I've done in the reality here is I've set up the bounding box, which is this cube here. Bounding box, done. Alright, and that's telling me how big the vehicle is, and I've done exact specifications of its size. Now, if you're doing something large like a battleship or aircraft carriers or any, I suppose, large vehicles that aren't working in roughly the meter scale, because this ambulance is, 6-7 meters long by about 2 and a bit meters wide. Most vehicles and trucks are around that size. Bikes might be 1 meter by 2 meter, and that's giving you some generous extra space. But if you're doing something large or really, really small, you need to adjust the scale. So I'm just going to touch on that here. because we have these various additional settings in Blender to control it. And then under the scene setting, we have this unit of scale. So if I was to, I'll just save this scene because I haven't done that yet. Desktop, E450. It's just the code for the vehicle. Yeah, so as you go through here, you can actually adjust this scale. So if I was dealing with something like a ship, which, you know, should be between, I don't know, I'm guessing here, 50 and say 500 meters long, I might want to go for 10 times scale, so that each unit in here is that you can see the dimensions have adjusted automatically. Or I might be able to go for something immensely large, and now you can see it's adjusted again in the dimensions. If I want to go for really small, and I tend to use these sort of setups for modeling stuff that is for 3D printing, so that you can actually get those sort of details in there, and you know precisely what scale you're working with. You can also switch between different units of measure. So here, here is the metric and imperial difference, so I can switch to feet and inches. I'm not going to go there because it's too much of a headache. But with the metric system, I've got access to meters, millimeters. So if I'm doing 3D modeling, I'll switch to millimeters because I find it easier to work with millimeters because it's whole numbers. If I'm, yeah, strange, I'm not too sure what happened there. If I'm working with large vehicles, I'll work in meters. If I'm doing space stuff, I might work in kilometers. It really depends what's appropriate. And then of course you've got your masses. So here you've got the mass of what everything, and the option of adaptive basically gives you a couple of units measure. You can just type the letter at the end. So if I wanted to, and it's done it again, how weird. Okay, let's just go meters. That is so weird. All right, so if I wanted to go, say, like I typed with the inches earlier, I just typed in a number and then put IN for inches. So let's go 36 feet as, FT. It's now done it. I'll undo that because I don't really want that dimension in there. But you can see what it's doing in terms of that stuff. If I want to go adaptive, it can do that. If I wanted to do meters, that should revert. That's kind of messing with my head now. Centimeters. Millimeters. Oh, it even goes microns. Micrometers, which is the little u. You should be able to just type u on the end. Kilometers, virtually none. And then of course we've got degrees and radians. I wouldn't bother touching that sort of stuff. Degrees is the unit of measure you're commonly used to using here in Australia. 360 degrees to a full circle. Radians, you get 2 pi radians to a full circle. Pi being 3.14158 or 59, depending on where you round it. Yeah, 1.13, 1.14 actually. Then you multiply that by 2 and you get sort of 6 point something. But that's a unit of measure you're not used to using, so don't even touch it. But yeah, so this allows you to control how you're scaling stuff. And that then makes it easier in the modeling process to just focus in on what the vehicle looks like. So I'm going to cut it here for now, and we'll go on to stuff later.